Hello, Internet, and welcome to the first Nerd Break discussion panel. I am your host, Joseph, and joining me is my co-host and best friend, Zombs.
That's me.
Yes, it is, Zombs. Today, we are going to discuss the problem that everybody keeps confusing us with, which is why we are so one-sided on the Nintendo Switch.
We're not a Fight Club?
No, we're not talking about Fight Club.
Oh. Oops.
So hopefully we won't get into a fight during this discussion.
Those are my favorite parts.
How about you tell us a little bit, Zombs, about what you were telling me just before we started recording?
Oh yes, that this ginger brew energy drink from Monster is amazing.
Hashtag not sponsored. And no.
But if that specific company would like to sponsor me, I will gladly show it off and yeah.
Well, while Zombs tries to recollect his memories, in this discussion panel, we are going to cover 3 different topics. For one, why we are so big on the Nintendo Switch. For another, we're going to cover video game preservation. And then we are going to wrap up with our thoughts on
Myth or fact?
yes, whether it is a myth or a fact. So, Zombs, starting off, you were telling me before the podcast, well, before this discussion panel, that you had been talking to someone and you got into the discussion of what's going on with the Switch and why so many people, including us, are talking so much about it.
Yep. What are you hand gesturing there?
You are not elaborating on it.
Oh yes. Excuse me while I drink this. Delicious. Anyways, so we're gonna save. I picked a title for this subject. I'm gonna save it for last. Nintendo Direct came out. What 1 month did that come out?
The most recent one,
Yeah,
that was in January, I believe.
and then there was another one before that. And honestly, I didn't know what a Nintendo Direct was until you, Broseph, were telling me about it. And so I watched the first one. I saw the second one with you, and there was so much being covered. Uh, a lot of people come to me and they want to talk to me about these games coming out. Sometimes I get parents who ask me, and they say, "Oh, I'd like to purchase Splatoon 3," and this happened like a couple weeks ago. And they're like, "Oh, I want to purchase Splatoon 3," and I'm like, "Oh, well, you can't because it won't come out for like another year." Stuff like that. I get that a lot.
That Nintendo Direct, for correction's sake, was in February.
Oh,
That
okay.
announced Splatoon 3, among other things, yeah.
Yeah. And then, hey, we just had Monster Hunter Rise was just released, and so many people come to me and they're just like, "Hey, I'd like to purchase the Pro controller," and I'm like, "You and everybody else, well, you can't because there's no more." Uh, some places were able to do, or actually, I think they said in the Nintendo Direct that no places were able to do the pre-orders for specific things that were pertaining to Monster Hunter, and I was really surprised. And I remember like the day after the Nintendo Direct had aired, so many people were coming the next day, and they were asking me these questions, and they say, "Hey, can I pre-order this?" And I was like, "No." And they said, "Why not?" Did you see the Nintendo Direct? They said, "No." So can you look it up? Sure. So I show them my computer screen and I type in some stuff and I'm like, look, it's not there because it's a no. Nintendo Direct said no. You see where I'm getting at with all this?
Yeah, that you're telling
Or is
people
that a
no
no?
on all this stuff that keeps coming out for the Nintendo Switch.
So, and that's what it is like all this stuff coming out. So I've named uh, Monster Hunter Rise, which it's got a big hype. A lot of people were asking about that. Um, Story of Seasons looks like a lot of fun. Uh, Same thing with the Harvest Moon. Um, we got some Pokemon games coming out, and I think I'm missing some stuff.
Yeah, like Splatoon 3 next year, Mario Golf
Splatoon
coming
3.
out later on this year,
That yeah, you know what? Mario Golf looks freaking amazing.
Ease 9, which is a
Uh,
legendary series, is jumping onto Switch here in the summer.
yeah, and
Disgaea
I think
6 is an
that's.
exclusive this year for the Switch, for the States.
Do you have any more, or can I end this right now with this is my title? Is who I was speaking with about this, and they put the words in my mouth. They used hand sanitizer, but Switch is on top of the game right now. Just all this stuff coming out. So many people are excited for it. Also, the Nintendo Switch console is just like dominating the boards with sales. I mean, yeah, we just recently had the Xbox new series consoles come out, the PlayStation 5, but still, so many people are wanting Switch consoles.
In regards to the
Good job,
Xbox
Nintendo.
Series X and S and the PlayStation 5, the launch lineup of games for those systems, especially the Xbox, they didn't have their flagship title there for launch. It launched with practically nothing because it didn't launch with Halo. Then, and this is just me arguing. The PlayStation 5, for as much as I loved Spider-Man for the PS4, Miles Morales was kind of a side story from what I've heard. So again, PlayStation 5 didn't launch with a huge, amazing launch lineup. Switch has a lot of momentum because they have a lot of games out there already, and each one just builds on the next.
I completely agree. I was very disappointed with Xbox with their leading title for Halo not to be released with the Xbox, and I was so bummed. I'm a huge fan of Halo. I love the story, and I was just curious to see this new game. I was telling you, I said one of my favorite characters, Cortana. What's going to happen? Are going to be a flashbacks or what? But I need to see it. Um, and here I am still having to wait because it keeps getting pushed back.
That's a bummer, honestly. Talking about things that get pushed back, Nintendo typically doesn't do that. The most infamous thing that we've had that's been pushed back from recent memory, outside of Metroid Prime 3, that's a major. But Breath of the Wild was originally for the Wii U, and that kept getting delayed. Very rarely, though, because that's more kind of the exception. And Nintendo doesn't delay things that we know about. Typically, they very rarely do that. So they kind of are better in control of their release schedules and hyping things than other companies seem to be. Just in for argument's sake.
You hear that, Nintendo? We're challenging you. Stop delaying stuff.
I just said they don't do it very much.
Yeah, well, keep it up. Don't do it anymore. Too often, I guess.
So that's really the reason why we talk about Nintendo and the Switch so much. It's not that there aren't things to talk about for PlayStation and for Xbox. It's that when you look at what's happening, there is so much, a deluge of stuff that is going on for Nintendo in general, that it just outweighs oftentimes what's going on for the competition. It's just
I
so much, always.
I'm curious to see how the Nintendo company in Japan, not over here in America, in Japan, to see how they operate and do things within their company, simply because one, it's a Japanese company and very different from how things are done over here in the U.S. of A. Um, I have a friend who works for Toyota, and she's up there with Toyota. So where she went to Japan and she saw their company and how they did things, and she was telling me that one, this props for you, Toyota, but like when somebody joins their company, they expect them to be in there for life, and it's like this whole big thing, and it's just freaking awesome. Like they have like a ceremony and everything, and I wonder if Nintendo is one of these companies because Nintendo's been around a very long time. I'm seeing a lot of good things coming out of Nintendo constantly. I mean, can you imagine the day that Nintendo says, "Hey, we're bankrupt. We're closing down"?
I
No,
think that, yeah,
I
no,
can't see it.
that is a long ways to come.
Yeah.
That is a long ways to come.
So it's just this company putting all this effort and all this stuff is coming out. I just want to see how they operate.
We may get a chance one of these days.
Will they let me tour,
You know, one can only ask. Hey, Nintendo, if you're listening, come visit sometime. Pretty please.
please?
With sugar on top.
Can you sign my Switch?
That would work too. Mr. Miyamoto, would you sign our switches, please?
Signs it like right on the screen every time I play. I just have a signature across my screen.
Preferably the backside. Speaking, though, of things that we are seeing, next up, we want to talk a bit about video game preservation.
Video game preservation.
Not to give away too much, but the recent announcement of the closure of the PlayStation Store for Sony with the PS3, the PlayStation Vita, and the PSP is a really major blow. We are about to lose a ton of games digitally. Now, this has happened previously to Nintendo with the Wii and the Nintendo DSi. I think that shop has closed, has long since closed. But this is major because we're not losing a handful of games. We are losing thousands upon thousands of games that you will no longer be able to purchase in any way, shape, or form because the format's just gone for them. And there's no system to backwards compatibility it to. Whereas with Xbox, they seem to be doing a really good job because their systems are backwards compatible. The new Series X and S are backwards compatible to games all the way back to the original Xbox. Why don't you say what you were saying a little bit ago there, Zombs?
When it comes to video game preservation, I throw out two major titles right now is PlayStation and Xbox. After seeing the different generations of PlayStation, sure, we've seen some past ones where they're like they can play older games, but the titles are very limited. And then especially like right now with the PS5, I'm hearing a lot of the same thing going on. Not as much as with the the new Xbox, but I'm also seeing that like with the new Xbox too is like they have more old titles that you can purchase digitally. So that's great. Here, I would have to say I think that Xbox does a much better job than PlayStation as far as video game preservation. I can play all the Halos digitally. Thank you. Gears of War. I'm looking forward to it. I love my old games, and I want to play them still. Sometimes, every once in a while, I can do that with Xbox. Something I've noticed too is Twitch is not so like you can purchase older games on the Switch, but at the same time, they are doing a lot of remakes. Hey, look at um, Skyward Sword is coming back out. That's a remake, right?
Right.
Uh, with remastered art, um, as well as they're doing a remake of Diamond and Pearl, right?
That's correct, yes.
So I
Those
mean,
are
there's some,
Nintendo DS games getting remastered.
yeah. And what about Arceus? What is that one all about?
Well, that's just a brand new game.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was something going on there. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't kept up on all the Pokemon games. There are some in the middle there that I had no idea about, and I thought that was maybe one of them.
No,
But
it's not.
if I've upset any Pokemon fans out there, please bring your anger to me and I will shut it down.
When you talk about video game preservation, when it comes to Nintendo, though, they only get it right so far. The best examples are that we have the NES and SNES apps on the Switch. That's a thing that keeps recurring, though. They did something similar, made games like that available on the Wii, on the Wii U. This is not something. My argument here is that Xbox actually does it better, honestly. They let you go back to all the games, whereas Nintendo can't exactly because of how they build their game systems. They each one are so distinctly different. Granted, Capcom showed how you can do Nintendo DS games at least right on the Switch because they actually divided the screen, gave you a little window, or let you pick and choose how you want to display the second screen on the major big screen. So there are options for Nintendo to do DS games and everything on the Switch. It's just like you were alluding to. What we're getting with Nintendo is not so much preserving the original game, we're getting remakes, and we're getting a lot of those, it seems like, which is still preserving games to an extent.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. I think we've said it before, just to clarify. Some people don't know the difference between a remake and a remaster. Is a remaster is just where they go through and they polish the game up, give it a lot better graphics. They may add a couple things here and there, but a remake is same title, completely different game. It may follow the same storyline. Like let's take when Resident Evil 2 came out just recently. That game is a remake. The graphics are a lot better compared, like they're modern compared to the Resident Evil 2 when it first came out, but it did follow the same storyline, but there was a lot of differences to the point that this is not the same game. Therefore, it's a remake, and those are the two differences that I just wanted to point out for a lot of people.
Right.
If I missed anything, put it in the comments or send us an email, and I'll give you a shout out for correcting me. Gracias.
Not to make things even more confusing, but then you also have reimaginings that you have to deal with.
I don't even know what
We're
that
not
is.
going. Yeah, we're not going into that.
I think you're making up words now.
Oh no, no, this is a real thing.
Okay. If you say so, like, what's another made up word? Cool Whip.
The question I would have right now is: anybody listening, do you think, for the sake of video game preservation, that a remake, remaster, reimagining counts as preserving a game? Let us know. Send us an email at nerdbreakpodcast@gmail.com. Or, like Zom said, drop a comment in the comment section of this video. Let us know what you think.
Let's jump on to our third subject, our third topic, myth or fact. What am I talking about here, Broseph?
That rumored Switch Pro.
The rumored Switch Pro. Myth or fact? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. We've talked about this before. That it was just a myth in one of our earlier videos for the main line for the Nerd Break podcast. But I really don't know. I believe it was you, Joseph, who told me no, it's not happening.
I said that in context to it happening at a specific point in time. I actually fully believe that we're going to get a Switch Pro. It's just when is the question. Something that I haven't told you, Zombs, is that there's been more rumors circulating and even a lot more prominent people that have been coming forward saying that this is a real thing. The latest thing is that the production of the chipset that the Switch is using has actually stopped being produced. Yeah, so this is lending credence more that the Switch Pro is going to be a thing. It's going to have a brand new chipset that is going to make it more powerful. The rumors currently are speculating that it can output at 4K, but it's going to be not full 4K. It's going to be kind of a faked 4K. So it's going to look it kind of, but it's not going to be native to the system. It's going to be an upscale. It's also supposed to have a bigger screen. It's not supposed to be extremely bigger, but it's possible that the bezel that's currently on the regular Switch might actually get reduced in favor of just making the real estate of the actual screen for the system itself bigger, which would be interesting.
So the Switch, supposedly, if this came out, the Switch Pro would be able to play the Switch games on it, obviously, right?
Right.
Okay. Here's something while we're on the subject of that. For those of you listeners, I know a lot of parents or friends or family members who buy Switch stuff or looking to buy Switches for other people. The Switch Lite and the Switch standard Switch, the main difference is one's a handheld, strictly a handheld. The other one is versatile. The main Switch, you can connect it to your TV. The Joy-Cons are detachable. You can take it on the go. My Switch, I'd say 80% of the time is with me. Um, and the Switch Lite comes in the different colors. It cannot connect to the TV. It's meant for really one person, and it doesn't have the motion capabilities. So games such as like Mario Party or Just Dance, you can't play those on the Switch Lite.
That's primarily just because they don't have the detachable Joy-Con.
Yeah.
You can still actually play those games on the Switch Lite if you buy Joy-Con. The Joy-Con will sync to the Switch Lite.
Oh, you learn something every day. What about wired controllers?
The wired controllers absolutely will not.
They won't connect to the Switch Lite?
You should know that. There's no point. There's no port to link them to, silly.
Well, I've never looked at a Switch Lite. I didn't know if there was the
It has the
port.
USB-C charging port. That's it. So I mean, if there was
That's
an
it.
adapter for USB-C to whatever your wired controller needed, then maybe. But we're deviating off topic.
I just go wireless. Well, my point is, it's going to be a newer version of the Switch, almost like the Switch Pro would be like version 3.
I actually would argue the point that the Switch Lite and the regular Switch actually have the same chipset, and that chipset is based on scalability of games. So it's just like your PC being able to swap between settings of how high graphical power you want to play your particular game in. Only Switch does it automatically based on whether it's connected to the dock or whether it's in handheld mode.
Mm. So yeah, I don't. You can still find the original Switches out there, version 1. I think the main difference was battery life?
Yeah. There is technically that
Okay.
difference. There are technically 3 versions of the Switch at retail, but you won't be able to purchase the first version because it was the initial original version. And the main difference between it and the redesign, I guess you could say, which it really wasn't, but the refresh, there we go, is that it had a
Version 2?
yeah, it had a slightly newer chipset in it, slightly, that got rid of a hack workaround that they found in the first version, and it improved battery life significantly. It doubled it.
I love it. I wish you had double battery life because then you wouldn't be tired all the time.
I'm not tired all the time.
I thought you were tired of life.
That is another discussion for a whole nother day.
Oh, okay.
Do you think the Switch Pro is real?
Do I think it's real?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's real. But of course, everybody's gonna speculate it. I mean, with what also you had said, they stopped manufacturing that part, maybe because they're gonna manufacture a newer part, or I could be wrong, and they're just gonna come out with a whole new console that nobody knows about in like 2 years.
That I would kind of doubt because the Switch is riding so high. I would see the Switch Pro being a thing before an entirely different system. Nintendo themselves said that that the Switch was supposed to last longer than 5 years. They wanted it to be a system that lasted longer.
I mean, it's doing so good. I think it's gonna last longer than 5 years.
I do too. I really do. Nintendo is positioned the Switch not just as a hybrid system, but also in the best strength that they have, which is handhelds. They have always done really well in the handheld video game market. Switch is an extension of that.
Yeah, that's something that I've really enjoyed with having a Switch is if I can find, a particular type of game, I would prefer to have it on the Switch simply because it's portable. I can take it anywhere. If you go to a relative's house that is like super boring and they have nothing to do, I just whip out my Switch and I play it there in the corner, and then everybody wants to bug me and see what I'm doing. Or let's say I'm at work on my lunch break and I just want to play some Switch games. You're on the bus or the train or the airplane to Japan and play some Switch because that's a long flight.
Indeed, I take my Switch almost everywhere too, to be honest.
That's another thing. Xbox and PlayStation, you guys need to learn from the red guy.
Yes, they do, because a portable Xbox would be very interesting. Sony really needed to learn better from their for their handhelds, for the PSP and the Vita. Those were both amazing little handhelds, but they had weird quirks that never ever sell well. One final thought on the Switch Pro. It is rumored that we could get it as early as sometime this summer.
That's like right next door.
I know it is shockingly close. And if not, it's more than likely going to be something that we will see next year for certain.
I'm excited. That's it's so close. I mean, I'm just and like you said, these are all rumors. We have reasons to believe why this is true, but I'm just waiting on that message from Nintendo to tell me, hey, this is happening. Give me your money, and I will give you money.
Just don't do it like you did the Switch Lite. Drop it and just, yeah, don't do that. Actually tell us.
Yeah.
If I can go on a tangent real quick of speculation,
Okay.
Breath of the Wild launched on the Switch, more or less. They have said, Eiji Aonuma said specifically that they are working on Breath of the Wild 2 and asked for more time because they were still trying to work out all the great ideas that they have. I wonder if Breath of the Wild 2 could launch alongside the Switch Pro.
That would be interesting. I I would welcome it. It would boost their sales. I would probably just trade in my Switch for a Switch Pro, but you know, I'm pretty sure I would probably get it uh, if it's because Nintendo just doesn't make something and it's very close to the other one. Hey, between Switch version 1 and 2, the just the double battery life was amazing. So I mean, if they offer you, a faster processor still and more battery life, I'd do it. I can only imagine like how much better my games would be. Also, there's a lot of games that are on Xbox and PlayStation that are also now on the Switch. And like these are games that are like really competitive, such as like Fortnite or Apex.
Right.
And it's like, what is it that like there's really the not much of a difference anymore between these major consoles and the little Switch. It's like why do you need that big thing when you can just have this tiny console in your hands that's just as good?
There is the graphical aspect and the processor speeds to worry about. And that's kind of where, and this is kind of pushing it because Nintendo does whatever they want to do. But that major graphical divide that was there and present when the Switch launched, anyways, has only grown bigger with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So Nintendo kind of needs to keep up a little bit. So a Switch Pro would be another reason to exist by because of the great graphical divide.
So what do you think? I think it's real. Switch Pro, I believe it. What do you think, Joseph? Is it myth or
I
fact?
am saying it's fact. It's just a matter of time. I fully believe the Switch Pro is coming. I believe that it is coming either this year, though I'm a little hesitant on that as I really expect it to launch or at least coincide with a major title. And my bet would be they would coincide it with Breath of the Wild 2. And I am guessing that it's probably not coming till either the end of this year at the very earliest or sometime next year.
So you hear that, Nintendo? We're on to you. Let us tour your
Let
facilities,
us give you some ideas, please.
please. I have plenty of ideas.
Well, I think that does it for our very first Nerd Break discussion panel.
I miss Moxie.
I do too, Zombs. But what do you think, dear listener? If you enjoyed this discussion panel, let us know by either sending us an email at nerdbreakpodcast@gmail.com or dropping a comment on this video. If you enjoyed these shorter forms,
Do you think that it's a good idea to purchase Nintendo stock right now? To jump ahead of the game, purchase some stock, and then sell it later on after the Switch Pro gets released? Because we think it's going to get released. So.
but thank you everyone so much for listening. If you like this, don't forget to like it. Subscribe if you're new here. As always, on behalf of myself and Zombs,
I'm going to eat a burger.
don't forget to take a break and nerd out, everyone.